We go. We're going to open P and Z meeting at 4 o'clock. Before we approve the minutes, I'd like to welcome John Lovett. John's our newest member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. He's going to be a great asset. He's got a lot of experience in development for, I don't know, 60, 70 years or something, however old he is.
I could fill out the hour. But,
Welcome, John. Glad to have you. Appreciate you stepping up.
Thanks, Mike.
First thing on the agenda, approval of meeting minutes from December the 7th, 2023. Anybody have any corrections or modifications they think need to be done?
I will make a motion to approve as they are provided.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion to approve second. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Consideration and final action for a preliminary plat. Drew?
This is a preliminary plat of the Bluewood, a subdivision, 67.99 acres out of the original Walter Fosgate Survey number 120, abstract number 138. This is along Callow Boulevard. There you see it at the end of the current dead end of Callow Boulevard. And they're showing 3 lots and then the residential, single-family residential cul-de-sac at the end. They've got their preliminary utility layout. Of course, they have been working with engineering on their adequate facilities plan. Do have a few conditions. We recommend approval of the plat with the following conditions: that the proposed future collector should be identified either as a future phase, a remainder tract, or constructed to the extent of the property. And I'll go through these back on the plat as well. Identify any remainder tracts or future phases, and the small unnumbered parcel should be included in the adjacent parcel. So number 1, you see the collector is shown as a street stub. They're proposing that collector, and consistent with the master plan for the development, the planned development district, that collector will go off to the north and wrap around the sports complex, coming back over to either Town Creek, Moore Road, somewhere around that area. The way this is drawn, that large piece around the development is tracked as lot number 1. So if that is going to be platted as lot number 1, they will need to extend the collector to the edge of their property. They could also, and that's what number 2 is pointing at, show that northern part as a remainder, and then the future collector will be put in when that remainder is developed. And we don't need an exact alignment if that's the case, or identified as a specific phase. We've been in contact with the applicant, let them know that that was going to be a condition of the final plat, so they'll have to work through that with their civil construction plans and final plat. Nothing that we need answered immediately, but before we get to final plat, that will have to be answered. And then number 3, there's a small, looks like a median basically between the road and the driveways for the apartment complex. It's too small to be a buildable lot, so we're recommending that it be incorporated into the adjacent lot. With that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
So all of these decisions will be made prior to your approval of the civil engineering plans and
Yes.
final plat?
So the commission can approve it with those conditions deferred to a later phase in the project. Obviously, with the civil construction plans, if they're going to build the road, that'll have to be incorporated into it. If they're going to leave it as a street stub, then they can just illustrate that on the final plat with a remainder tract rather than that all being one platted tract.
Okay.
I know we did have one citizen speaker.
Any other questions before we hear from George? Okay.
Need to open the public hearing?
No, it's not a public hearing.
So my questions are all really tied to what he was just describing, which is, because really, as it's drawn, you have one big long cul-de-sac, right?
Right.
Okay, so when you're talking about what they have to bring before the final, is it, because they're like landlocked before they get to any other public road, right? I mean, they're not adjacent to a public road on any facet except that entry at Calu Boulevard, right?
That is correct.
So part of what they have to bring forward is not just a design of where their road's gonna go to the edge of their property, but they gotta get through a neighboring property to a public road. Is that correct?
No, the fire code, I believe what you're asking is, based on the fire code, they have to have two connections to a collector as the major
Right,
thoroughfare
but they
for the
have to
area.
actually, it has to be there. So like, right now, there isn't one, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they have to actually gain access to an actual collector, which doesn't exist on the adjacent properties. Is that correct?
Callow Boulevard is a collector.
That's one,
So that would be their first connection is right there near the existing cul-de-sac.
correct?
The second connection is actually going to be the flag. Well, close to number 3, where number 3 is pointing.
Okay,
So from the fire code standpoint for the construction of the apartments, those two access points count as their two connections to a collector. It is to the same collector. But that does meet fire code.
what do you mean it's to the same collector? What,
Callow Boulevard will extend up to number 1
Yeah.
as a collector.
okay, I can't see where one is. Is that the one to the right?
Yes,
Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I think I can. So, but that's, so you're gonna have, but you have to get out to a different one, otherwise you're not actually going from a fire station to this development, right?
no, the collector,
Yeah, that's fine.
the collector, Callow Boulevard.
Right.
Up to this point,
Uh-huh,
which is close to where number 1 is
Right.
pointing. This is considered by fire code as the thoroughfare. So the
fine.
development has to have two connections to the thoroughfare. Now,
Oh,
as the rest of this develops, this collector will come around.
so there's only one access to this entire property.
That's
And and by design, that's gonna only be one.
Until this develops all the way to the
Right,
north
but-
end? Correct.
yeah.
For this portion, that's correct.
So when they say that it's two access to that one coming in, can you point me to where I can go research that? Because that doesn't seem to make sense to me. Like because I've got a fire truck coming from a fire station. I've only got one way into this.
Right. I don't know the exact section. It is in the fire code. The access for the development or for the construction project has to have two access points to the collector. They do have that. The collector street is wide enough that should there be any kind of
And
accident,
it's all fire.
can
so
still
we're-
get around.
We're talking, so when I go looking up, we're talking about fire apparatus.
Mhm.
Okay, all
Yes,
right.
sir.
that's good
Comanche
enough.
Trace,
Yeah,
until very recently, has been that way. There's only been one entrance. A lot of connections to
right,
Comanche Trace Drive.
yep. And
right. No,
There's only
I-
been one way in and one way out
Right,
until.
and I get that, but
Yeah,
I don't know what the codes were back when that was created. So you wouldn't have to create one. I know what they are right now, and
It's,
I'm seeing this as just one way in.
it's similar to Comanche Trace Drive is a collector.
Right.
So all of the side streets have access to that
No,
collector.
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just-
what you're talking about is more than one way in and out.
Yeah, because by my understanding of the fire code, it talks about the fire apparatus, access road. And it defines that as the road from a fire station to the development. And there aren't two, there's one. Unless you put a fire station inside this development, which we're not
Yeah,
doing.
The
So-
reference is for the development, access to a thoroughfare. And an arterial and a collector are both considered a thoroughfare for the fire truck to
Yeah,
access.
but this
So-
thoroughfare is a cul-de-sac. It's got one end of it that's
Right.
not really a
The
thoroughfare.
apartments have to have two access to the collector. The collector doesn't have to have two access points.
Okay, like I said, I don't want to waste any, we've already broken we've messed up with the record. So I'll go do my research, but I think you should look at that yourselves, on that. Thanks.
Well.
And
good
the
thing
fire
that-
marshal did approve this as well.
Yeah, it's a preliminary plat, so it still has a lot of hoops to jump through.
Any other questions?
I have no other questions. Anybody else have any other questions? If there are no other questions, then I would entertain a motion on the preliminary plat.
I'll make a motion to approve as provided.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. All in favor? Motion passes. We have any staff reports or other items?
Next meeting will be February 1st. We do not have any case applications at this point. Our plat application is, the deadline is the end of this week, so we'll see if we have any items for the agenda. Additionally, we are looking at putting out a request for proposal for the kind of interim update to the comp plan. The comp plan is typically updated roughly every 5 years, and more your major update every 10 years. So we're looking to do that sometime this year. Hope to get that RFP out in the next month. So won't have much direct involvement with P&Z until we get through approval process, but just some of the things up and coming for the year.
Anybody have anything they would like to see considered for future meetings? All right.
Keep them quick.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.